My name is Lauren Gallaway, and I am the co-founder of a fan site called the Marvel Report. The Marvel Report is a fan site and a news site, and we love, because a lot of us are writers, a lot of us work on set, a lot of us work in this industry, but we're also fans. So we started the Marvel Report as a place to connect fans like us to creators like this panel. So today we are going to be going over concept art, visual development art, of characters and movies that you guys are very familiar with, but maybe you aren't sure who designed that character, who designed Captain America's shield, who had the idea of putting the Ant-Man inside of a suitcase to have this incredible battle set to a Depeche Mode song. So we're going to go over a lot of really awesome images today. Some of this art is available in the concept art books, and if you guys brought those with you, I'm sure maybe we can sign some things afterwards. I know that both Ryan and Andy have booths downstairs where they're selling their art. So we're gonna kick off the panel by talking about Marvel Studios' visual development team. And Ryan is gonna talk about how that team was created, what they're responsible for. It's very unique because it's an in-house team. I don't know if every studio necessarily runs like that, but Ryan's definitely going to walk us through that. So let me introduce you to our panel today. First we have Ryan Meinerding. He's currently the head of visual development at Marvel Studios. His first film at Marvel was Iron Man, so he's been with them since the beginning. He created the visual development department along with Charlie Wen, and he's worked on every Iron Man film, every Captain America film, and every Avengers film. And I'm sure he's had a hand in all of the other ones as well. So let's give a round of applause for him. Next we have Andy Park. Andy is currently a visual development supervisor at Marvel Studios. His first film was Captain America: The First Avenger. His background before working at Marvel was actually comics. He was a comic book artist for 10 years. He worked on the Tomb Raider series at Mark Silvestri's Top Cow. And your first job, you were hired by Rob Liefeld. That's right. Awesome. In 2014, Andy was promoted to the lead visual development concept illustrator on Captain America: Civil War. And in 2015, he was promoted to visual development supervisor. And he and Ryan both work on the teams that develop all of the awesome concept art in these films. So let's give a round of applause. Next we have Anthony Francisco. Let's welcome Anthony. He's a concept artist at Marvel Studios. His first film was Guardians of the Galaxy. He's worked on Thor Ragnarok, Ant-Man, Captain America: Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Black Panther, and Avengers: Infinity War. Next we have Jackson Z, who's also a senior visual development at Marvel Studios. His first film was The Avengers. And he's worked on Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Guardians, Ant-Man, Age of Ultron, Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians Volume 2, and Thor Ragnarok. Next we have Rodney Fuentebella. Let's welcome Rodney. Rodney is also a senior visual development at Marvel. His first film was Captain America: The First Avenger. He's worked on Cap 1, 2, and 3, Avengers 1 and 2, and he's also working on Avengers: Infinity War. Lastly, we have Phil Saunders. He's a concept artist at Marvel Studios, and his first film was also Iron Man, so he's worked on all of the films as well. He's also done development on the Helicarrier, the Quinjet, and we're also going to go over some War Machine designs with him later, so let's welcome Phil. So Ryan, what can you tell us about the visual development team? How you guys decide who's going to work on what film and the process at Marvel?
Right. So the visual development team, as you said, was unique in the live-action film business because typically people like us work for costume designers and production designers. But the nature of the first Iron Man movie was that Iron Man was not going to be in the purview of a costume designer. So the artists got to work directly with Jon Favreau and the producers at Marvel to figure out the look and feel of Iron Man and some important keyframes for that movie. And as a result of that, Marvel, I think, found a lot of value in having direct contact with artists that love the source material and also, you know, wanted to do fantastic imagery. So they asked me to stay on at a certain point to keep working on the films. And Charlie Wen came on Thor, and we together formed the visual development team for Avengers. Because it was going to be such a big project, we needed a lot of people to sort of make sure we get quality designs for all of the characters. And from there, I think Marvel was looking at it in terms of the other unique part about it was that they were going to be building a universe, right? So they needed some continuity between the films, and having the same artists stay with characters and develop the same characters that they had loved as kids, as well as grew an additional attachment to because they had been around since the first version of the character in the film. The other unique parts about it is because we actually are responsible for getting the costumes and the keyframes approved by the directors and the producers, we get to actually go and make comments on when the costume designer creates something that we've come up with. We get to go and review it and say, like, let's make this better, let's tweak that. As well as for visual effects characters like Iron Man and the Hulk, like we get to do the initial model and then goes off to visual effects. And then when visual effects comes back, we get to review that and see, okay, let's make the Hulk's face a little bit different, or the color in Iron Man isn't quite working. So in terms of being at a place where you can really feel like you have a lot of investment and a lot of payoff, Marvel's been a fantastic place, and I think working with the tremendous artists that we have is an additional amazing payoff.
Awesome. So walk us through a typical day at Marvel Studios Visual Development. So Kevin Feige comes into your office and says, okay, the Russo brothers want 67 characters in Infinity War, let's get to work. Like, what does that look like? Because us as fans, we typically get like a concept art design that one of you guys have worked on, released maybe a year before the film. Like, I know there was that really iconic image of the Guardians from Volume 2, and Andy, you got to work on that. And so when that image came out, our reaction was, oh my god, that looks so cool, look at this new design on this character. But there was a whole process before that release. So can you guys talk a little bit about just like what it looks like to go from, okay, here's this character that we want to design, like to kind of that process?
I think usually we'll get started, we'll be some of the first people started on the films, so we'll meet with directors and producers and we'll get a script, and sometimes we'll outline that there'll be 67 characters in a movie, and then we have to sit down and think, like, how are we going to accomplish that? It turns into, our day-to-day is really sitting around in front of computers, painting and drawing, trying to be inspired by the script, inspired by the characters, and then brainstorming with each other to come up with cool, interesting new takes. And then, usually weekly or bi-weekly, we'll do a review, and they'll give us their notes on how things are going, and then we'll try and incorporate, and then we'll do rinse and repeat and keep going. Occasionally, there are sort of like the moments when Kevin will stop by and say, "Hey, we want to do Howard the Duck," like, and it's the last. It's we only have 2 days to do it because they're going to do it at the very end. Or, hey, we want to possibly do Spider-Man, so let's get working on that.
Right. You forgot, hey, there's 2 more movies you need to do aside from there's Black Panther, there's just
Yeah, no, the thing that's great about Marvel is they make great things, and I think they just want to keep making more great things. So when we got the notice that we were going to get an additional movie a year, it was hard to figure out, but I think we're doing our best.
Awesome. Well, you guys are doing a great job because everything consistently looks awesome. Brian, let's talk about Captain America. Would you say that he is your favorite character to design?
Yes, I've been lucky enough to work on every Captain America costume, and have seen some ups and downs, but I think we finally gotten him into a place where I'm ecstatic to see him on screen every time I see him.
So walk us through, this is a sequence, and so we have Cap in kind of the really classic, iconic suit with the boots, his kind of tactical outfit, and then it's kind of progressed a little bit. Can you walk us through some of these details?
Sure, the first one's a USO costume, which was meant to be more of a showman's costume for him to be on stage, so he actually got his classic red, white, and blue look. The next costume was the rescue costume where he's going off to save Bucky, and we were trying to look for something that felt very World War II and a little bit more tough than the first costume. And then when he finally gets his hero look in the first Avenger, that was our attempt at combining those first two looks. Going into Avengers, that look, Joss was looking for a very superhero look for him in that film, and from there we got to toughen him up a bit as we went into Winter Soldier look with the stealth suit, and then the versions after that for Age of Ultron and Civil War were both basically versions of the stealth suit that have been slightly modified with the red, white, and blue.
Walk us through some of your inspiration for Captain America. Let me go back to that one. When I look at this, the first thing I think of is Norman Rockwell. Like a very classic, kind of greatest generation feel. I'm assuming you designed this before Chris Evans was cast, like in the early days?
Yeah, very, very early. Probably about 6 months before he was cast. Or almost a year now. I got to work on that project very early. So yeah, one of the things I loved about Captain America was the World War II setting, and Norman Rockwell was always one of my favorite artists too. So I was trying to find ways of combining those two things and come with some imagery that felt World War II, but also had a sweetness to it, like it was nostalgic in some way.
And if you look really closely at all the really early concept art for Captain America, it's Ryan.
I didn't have a good model. I was actually a bit more in shape then. So.
It's okay, I think we all want to be Captain America. I think we have a couple Caps in the audience today. Well, Captain America would not be complete without his trusty shield. And obviously in the comics, Steve Rogers has carried a lot of different versions of the shield. So how did you land on this design?
Honestly, we were working it was in England, and the props department was coming up with some things that they kind of looked more traditional in that they just like regular paint scheme. So the thing I tried to bring to it was just making it feel a little bit tougher, like actually bringing the metal texture to it and trying to make it feel like it was a strong, basically just having the anodized metal shine through. And I know that some fans were upset that the white was actually metal instead of white. I did try to get it as white as I could, but they told me they couldn't do that.
Everyone loves the Steve Rogers poster. Okay, walk us through this image, because this is the first time we've really seen Black Panther in combat, and we know that Cap's shield is indestructible, but obviously there's something about Black Panther's claws that have an effect on the shield.
Black Panther's claws are also made of vibranium, so the idea for that was that always the shield was going to get scratched and not be repaired. So he's the one character in the MCU that can damage it up to this point.
Awesome. So Andy, let's talk about some of your designs. So you and Ryan have both had a hand in designing some of the really iconic Avengers. And you got to design some of Black Widow and Hawkeye, their different outfits in the different films. But I know that you put a lot of work into Ant-Man, so why don't you talk to us about your Ant-Man design?
Working on Ant-Man, that was really fun because initially, as you guys know, or probably know, the director was Edgar Wright. So this was after Avengers when we were working with him and his brother. And what was cool is that the conceit that he told us was that it's going to be a retro suit. It's going to be made by him back in the 60s. So just with that note, that already kind of sets the course of like his look. So there's a lot of research done on like astronaut suits and just things from that era, you know. So the challenge with Ant-Man was, how do you make a suit that looks like it's made from the 60s, but in the story, Scott Lang will be wearing it in present time. So how do you make it look cool still, even though it's obviously retro? And that was the fun part of designing Ant-Man. That's why he's got the tubes, just completely unpractical, but it looks cool, so they left it in. Yeah, so there's just a lot of going back and forth with Edgar, and yeah, eventually we came with the look. Of course, at the same time, the challenge with designing these characters and the fun of it is the source material. You know, so we look back at all the iterations, a classic look of Ant-Man. At first looking at him, he looks cool in the comics, but it's always like a little challenging because he's got a really big bulbous head with these big mandibles coming out. So if you just did that one-to-one, it's gonna, I don't know if people would buy that, you know? They'd buy it as cosplayers, but I don't know if they'd buy it like, you know, as a believable, cool character in the movie. So, I mean, that's the fun, and that's the challenge, that we're doing different takes on what that can look like. We always try to be, we try to respect the source material. I mean, I'm a comic fan, so I don't like it when comic book films, you know, you see a character, I'm like, that's that character? Like, it doesn't look like the character that I know and love, right? So, I always try to keep the spirit of that character. So I hope, you know, I did a good job in keeping the spirit of that man from the comics, but modernizing it, keeping it retro. Yeah.
So I think his biggest surprise moment in Civil War was when he turned into an AT-AT walker.
Yeah.
So can you talk about what it was like designing this, what it was like upscaling his suit for this scene, like the challenges that came with that?
Yeah, Civil War was one of my favorite films to work on, just because the story, you know, is like, oh my gosh, they're doing Civil War, they're going to be fighting each other, and then when they started saying like who the characters are going to be in the film, I mean, that was just like, I was ecstatic. I mean, of course, they added, at that time, Ant-Man came out, so they said Ant-Man's going to be in this movie, so I was like, yes! And at first, I don't think they were going to do Giant Man along the process, because a lot of our movies they change, and they're very liquid, and scripts change, and characters get added, like Black Panther got added later on. He wasn't in the initial script, and we were just like, wow, Black Panther! And then one day, Ryan told us Spider-Man's, and we're like, what? Spider-Man? How did that happen? And then Giant Man came along, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. So yeah, I had a lot of fun redesigning his suit. This one idea is, you know, I know a lot of people love the original suit, but you know, it makes sense that Hank Pym would make a modern suit. So this was a take on a modern suit. And then doing these keyframes, I did a bunch of keyframes with Giant Man or Ant-Man as Giant Man. And there was, you know, during the script, there's a lot of revisions, so you know, different players were on different teams. So some of these early keyframes, you see Giant Man about to smash Captain America, but you know, that's because that was an early version. So yeah, doing these keyframes were awesome. At that moment, I was just like, oh my gosh, it was especially great because Spider-Man's the one saying that, you know, so you just have Spider-Man, you have Ant-Man, you know, against the people we already know, like Tony Stark and Chris Evans as Captain America. It was just like, it was awesome to see. And then finally see it on the screen was just like, wow.
I think that was my favorite scene in the whole film. And leading up to the film, the airport scene looked like it would be the hardest to watch because the Avengers were all fighting each other. But then in the theater, I couldn't stop laughing at everything that was going on. So you guys did a really good job with that. Jackson, you also did some work on Ant-Man. And I really love this image with Scott in the diamonds.
Yeah. So early in the Ant-Man went through various iterations script-wise, and earlier we were exploring who Scott Lang is as a character. We know from the movie that he has a checkered past, some sort of criminality. But at this point, when I did this image, we're still exploring that. To what extent is Scott Lang a criminal, and how can we still make him likable as a protagonist for our film? So this was just a possible scenario where Scott Lang might use the powers of Ant-Man to his own advantage if he still had a criminal mentality, and it was to rob places and to steal things. And we just thought that putting him in an environment of diamonds and reflections and refractions would be really interesting visually. So that was kind of the reasons just to put him in there, just see what this exciting image to maybe be in the movie.
Yeah, I think it looks beautiful. I know that it wasn't in the film, but it's really cool just to see, like you were saying, coming up with where Scott Lang would go with those powers, what he would try to break into. And the film can't show all of that, but I think that comes through in the character development and the design that you guys are talking about. So you also designed one of the best scenes, or helped design one of the best scenes in the movie, which was the Thomas the Tank Engine. So please tell us about this.
I believe actually the Vista department had a hand in suggesting Thomas the Tank Engine as a possible character in the fight scene, because we knew it was going to be in Cassie's bed and she would have toys that they'd be fighting in. I think that was the case, that Vista pitched one of the ideas was to have Thomas Tank Engine. I'm so glad it worked out. It got to be a pretty fun part of the film. Working on Ant-Man was really refreshing in that we get perspectives that are entirely different from any other movie we've done before. And it also makes working here at Marvel Studios very interesting creatively, because we're confronted with different genres of the film from one to the next. And Ant-Man was a particularly interesting one because we get to explore textures and materials at a scale that we have not seen before. It's about how we describe plastic at that scale, or carpet. What does it look like at a microscopic level? So this was an exploration of how to keep the action interesting and hopefully exciting in an unusual setting, like in front of a toy set.
I think it was probably the funniest moment in the film, if not one of the funniest, because it's just, what I loved about this scene is that very ordinary things all of a sudden become very terrifying.
Yes, yeah.
Like an ant that grows into something that's the size of a dog,
Yeah.
Which later we see is Cassie's pet. But I thought this was so funny, and I feel like putting this moment in the trailer too is, I think, what got people so excited about that. And I think a lot of the work that you guys put into this, like when it shows up in a trailer or when it shows up in a clip, I think that gets people that much more excited about it. And you also worked on Guardians of the Galaxy, and this is the escape from the kiln moment. So can you walk us through some of the design elements of this?
At this early in the production process, a lot of times directors would just want to see characters interacting with each other, what the dynamic may look like visually. So this was an exploration of Rocket and Groot, whose relationship is very important to get right in the film. The script had this really exciting sequence of them breaking out of the kiln prison, so which was a really fun opportunity to illustrate something exciting and to hopefully start establishing the dynamic between Rocket and Groot, and hopefully help everyone in the process start to visualize the film. Because at that point, the script is what everyone's working off on, and we as a team will provide the visuals to start giving everyone a kind of a sense of direction as far as what the crew look like.
Awesome. Now, I think my favorite character in Guardians is Groot. Is anyone else's favorite character in Guardians is Groot? Okay. So, Anthony did a lot of development on Groot, and I have a lot of questions for you about Groot. Groot was such a surprising character to me, because when I first went to watch Guardians, I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't familiar with the Guardians of the Galaxy comic book. And I feel like it was so funny and so different to anything that Marvel had done before. And I feel like Groot in particular, I mean, he only says 3 words, but by the time they get to this moment, I was sobbing my eyes out over the, the death of this character. So walk us through, bringing emotion to something that's almost inanimate must be difficult. Can you walk us through the Groot development?
Reading the script, me too. When I was reading that part of the script, I actually was feeling the emotion in this. I thought it was going to be a comedy, but that part was really very touching. And I think having that script and the way it was written for me was a good starting point. And I just started thinking about, I have 2 kids and family and stuff, and I started thinking of them as a family, right? And if I lost my kid and that stuff. So while I was painting it, I tried to get that emotion out there, and I guess that was my process of trying to make it feel really, with a lot of feeling. And James Gunn also had he had a vision of how it would look like, and he just wanted everyone in a ball, and he's covered them up, and I couldn't picture it at first. How's this gonna look cool, I did a couple of thumbnails for it, and then he ended up liking the one with all of them in a circle, and he just made sure that you see the emotion between Groot and Rocket. And I put the little leaf in there. It's a leaf, in the movie it's, I guess the leaf is gone. And but yeah, he ended up really liking this, and it came out in the movie pretty cool.
Yeah, I think Groot's design, and this whole entire moment was just so beautiful because it was so sacrificial. And there was a scene where Groot hands the flower to the little girl.
Yeah.
Like, he's a character who doesn't say a lot, but like what he does says more than like what his words can say. I think for me, obviously the moment in Guardians that I love the most and that I think everybody else loved the most was Baby Groot. So tell us about Baby Groot.
Oh, Baby Groot. I think towards the end of the film, that's when this character came out, and I was the only one available to do it at that time. So it just, I said, what's this character? And James Gunn really just wanted, I did multiple versions, like maybe 10 versions of this character, and the first versions were really just not good. They were not good at all. He like Plant with the burger face and stuff. He said, no, what I want is a stick with a face. So I said, face of Groot. Make it look like the old Groot, but not exactly cuter or something like that. So I wasn't really sure how to go about it. And I did more like trying to be sophisticated. And, this time, one of the other designs, I couldn't think of anything else, and I just did a stick with a face, with a cute face, and did some more iterations on that kind of version, and he ended up really liking it. And it was just like a 3-day process. He came to my desk and he said, okay, what you got? And then he was like, that one, I like that one, okay, that's it. And then it was done, and it was in, and I didn't know I was going to dance. And then we saw it, like, oh man, that's so cool. It's like a total surprise.
That's so awesome. I think everybody loved that moment, and it was such a surprise to everyone because it felt like, okay, the movie's over, and we saw Groot in the little plant, like Rocket was holding him, but then to see him dancing and to see him happy was awesome.
That's the thing at Marvel, everything is just spoiler. When I first worked there, I was working on Guardians, but then I didn't know anything about Civil War or anything like that. But when I go in their rooms and they're talking about, oh, who? No. But later on, you just know what's happening before seeing the movie.
So Rodney, you got to design Yondu for Guardians. I think Yondu is another character that surprised me so much. And I think a lot of that had to do with Michael Rooker's approach to the role. But I love this sequence because you can just see in his Ravager outfit, there's so much detail that you built into his outfit. And Ryan, I liked what you were saying, that you're also costume designers in a way, because you have to layer in the look and the style. And he has the arrow. So walk us through what it was like designing Yondu.
Okay, so when we got the assignment to do Yondu, he was going to be kind of a smaller character at first, but then sometimes the script develops, like Andy said, and he became more of a character in the movie, which is awesome. Which, as a guy who ended up doing these illustrations for his costume, I was happy with. So when we did him, we didn't really know at first who was going to play him, and we're just designing something that looked something that had an ode to the comics and also to the script. That's kind of like what we have to play with, is how do we make it so that it looks like something that's been in the comic, but at the same time make it so that it's something that, like, for the script, it's it incorporates what he's supposed to be, and he's like a space pirate of sorts. So we were like, okay, what does a pirate look like? It's like, oh god, it's gonna look like something like Pirates of the Caribbean maybe, or something like that. But we wanted it to feel like a space pirate. So when we do these concepts, we come up with like ideas of what he could wear. So we wanted him to feel like he had a bunch of different things patched on him and make him feel tough. So that's why he kind of looks like the way he does, where he has all these different things. And we were thinking that maybe he would grab things from his previous encounters with other people. So that's why he has all these different things on him. So that was fun. That was a great thing to design. And it's always fun to just come up with a bunch of stories for these characters. Because it makes it feel more alive for us, and makes us feel like he's something that, you know, when we create, we want to feel like there's a backstory to these characters. So that's why, you know, we try and create like an idea of what they've been through, and that's how it looks like the way he does.
Awesome. So you also worked on designs for Winter Soldier, and I want to ask you about this scene. Who remembers the elevator scene in Winter Soldier? I think they showed that scene at San Diego Comic-Con as the first official footage of Captain America Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And I love that line, does anybody want to get out? So walk us through what it was like designing this scene.
Okay, so when I got this assignment from Ryan, we read the treatment script and it was like, okay, he's going to be in an elevator. So at first I was like, all right, I'm going to make a big elevator because there's going to be all these guys in it. And that's what the first image in the very top was. And I kind of wanted it to be a freight elevator because I don't know how to design a scene with all these people in a little elevator. And I remember, like, it got smaller and smaller, and then, like, I was like, how do you do this? So the great thing about our team is we collaborate a lot. So Ryan, like, took me to the elevator that we had in our studio and kind of helped me visualize what it was to be in that elevator with, I don't know, like 12 guys or so, like. And I was thinking about it, I was like, this is hard. And a lot of these assignments we get are trying to visualize something that has never been done before. So with that, like, I had to figure out, like, okay, how are they gonna be in this elevator and have it feel dynamic and feel exciting? Because, you know, these illustrations we do are before the movies have been filmed. So we gotta make the directors and everybody else in this involved in this movie excited about what it is that we're all working on. So, you know, I just had to come up with a bunch of stories. Like, you could see him pinning up a guy against the wall, and a bunch of other, like, people, like, almost piled upon each other in this chaotic mess. But, you know, you gotta create these little stories and these little scenarios when you create these keyframe illustrations, so you can help sell these moments. It was a fun and hard illustration to do, but it was exciting.
Have any of you guys seen Daredevil season 1? You guys know the stairwell scene in Daredevil? I feel like the elevator scene for Cap is like Steve Rogers' version of the stairwell scene for Daredevil. I think it came across so well, because you're not thinking about, oh wow, that's a really big elevator. You know, you're thinking about, wow, Steve Rogers is trapped in there with all those guys, and there's no way any of them are going to walk out of there. So what I love about the Marvel Universe is that you have these iconic characters, but so many of them have tech built into their suits. And I love the Quinjets and I love the helicarriers, and I know that Phil, you got to do a lot of work on those. So tell us about the helicarrier. How did that come together?
Well, I had started with Marvel on Iron Man 1, and then gone off to do some other movies. And then Victoria Alonso, who's the VP or president, co-president, or something. Anyway, she's in charge of president. She called me back for Avengers and said, hey, you know, we're doing the helicarrier, and we're doing the Quinjet and stuff, and I have a background in automotive design. That's where I came out of before getting into entertainment design. So they brought me in to do some early concepts for that with the art department. And so, you know, the first take was, you know, we want to see something that's believable. We want to see something, you know, how would you actually have a flying aircraft carrier? And so this early take was trying to make something that was like a gigantic C-17 military cargo plane using vertical thrust turbines and an aircraft carrier deck on top. And ultimately, a really amazing artist named Nathan Schrader ended up doing the final design, which was much more in the fantasy vein. But yeah.
What's it like for you, like speaking about the helicarrier in particular, in that moment in the Avengers when, who is it, Steve and Fury have the bet about Steve not believing that he'd see anything crazier, and then Natasha's like, you know, you better come inside. And I think it's a submarine, but then it rises up and it's a helicarrier. Like, as a designer, what's that like for you to see that moment in the theater?
Oh, just like any fan, it's just awesome.
Do you guys get to see those scenes finished before they go up, or do you have to kind of wait to see the final?
Sometimes, I mean, if there's something in it that we're working on reviewing, we'll get to see it, but a lot of times those moments are definitely saved for us, which is great.
You also got to design Tony's mansion in Santa Monica, or his Malibu estate. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we had spent probably 9 months. The original core team, the Iron Man suits on Iron Man 1 were myself, Adi Granov, and Ryan. And Adi and I had done the Mark II and 3, and Ryan had done the Mark 1, and then Ryan and Adi had done what at the time was going to be the Crimson Dynamo. And then when that stuff was out of the way, we all sort of got moved, or Ryan and I got moved on doing more traditional production design related stuff, working under late great Michael Riva, who passed away sadly, but was one of the great production designers. And so I started on doing some concepts for Tony Stark's house, and initially it was going to be something, really what we were thinking about is, when you think about Tony Stark, he's kind of the Marvel Universe equivalent of Batman. You know, he's this rich playboy on the surface, and a superhero who does not have any superpowers, who uses his technology and his money to become super powerful. So they wanted something that was completely the opposite of the old money East Coast mansion, and something that was uniquely Californian. So initially the designs were centered on, you know, these beautiful redwood structures, you know, green technology kind of stuff, and it just didn't feel different enough. So we looked at an artist, or an architect called John Lautner, who's done a lot of California houses that have this, I mean, this is back in the 60s and 70s, and they had this, just to this day, unparalleled use of cast concrete to create these beautiful organic forms with, you know, actual rocks from the environment intruding into the interior and stuff. And so that was our main inspiration. And I had been inspired, well, first we came up with the location, which was Point Doom on the coast, if anyone's been up through Malibu, Highway 1. And it's this incredible, beautiful, scenic spot. And of course it's, you know, a state park and untouchable. So who else but Tony Stark to take over a state park and put his multi-billion-dollar mansion up there.
I like that analogy that it's different than the Wayne Manor or the Batcave, because that is Tony. He isn't someone who wants to do something in the shadows. And what's so great is that we might not necessarily understand that parallel right away, just watching the film, but because you guys have thought about it, like, we get that sense as well. So you also worked on Veronica, the Hulkbuster. Could you talk about this a little bit?
Well, actually, all of us, I think, worked on Hulkbuster.
Okay, you guys can all weigh in here.
Yeah, it's interesting. The process kind of changes depending on you know, the comfort level of what we're designing. When we're introducing something really new, for example, Ultron or the Hulkbuster with Age of Ultron, you know, it's something that they want to see a lot of different takes on. They want to see how many different ways we could do it. And so we tend to tend to have everybody take a crack at it for a few weeks, and we just, literally, we will fill a wall this size with images. Everyone will produce like 10 different designs, and they'll all go up, and sticky notes will go up with the directors, and Kevin Feige in a big presentation, and they'll pick out design directions that they like. And so, this was one of the directions that ended up going through about 3 iterations before ultimately Josh Nizzi's design was the one that he finally went with.
Awesome. All right, the last character we're going to talk about is War Machine. And if you guys have any audience questions, there is a microphone right back there next to Sean. So this is War Machine's Mark III, right? And this is his design for Civil War. So, we've seen a lot of different designs for Tony, and I like that War Machine he's gone through kind of the red, white, and blue phase, and now he's kind of in this kind of darker phase. It's like, what can you tell us about this design?
Well, the first War Machine that I worked on, believe it or not, was actually for Iron Man 1. And War Machine was going to be introduced as a armor upgrade for Tony Stark that was going to go on top of the Mark III armor. And then by the end of that project, that storyline had been cut, and they wanted to have an actual War Machine in the Hall of Armor at the end, because of course, they wanted to sell a few more toys. And so I did a full War Machine armor design for that, and then Ryan took over with Iron Man 2, which I wasn't on, and developed the War Machine that we got introduced to. With Iron Man 3, Ryan and I both did some concepts for that, and a few of my little bits from one of my designs ended up in Ryan's final design, so I was thrilled to actually get the opportunity to do the suit in Civil War. And with Civil War, what we were trying to do was take the Iron Man suit and the War Machine suit as far apart as possible. So where we had gone in Iron Man 3 to a very almost geometric kind of form language for Iron Man, we had gone the opposite direction and tried to get very much more anatomical and muscular with the Mark 45, which made it this very, back to sort of the wearable Ferrari concept that we had started with on Iron Man 1. And so we really wanted to contrast that with War Machine. So War Machine, if Iron Man was the wearable Ferrari, he was going to be the wearable tank, or the wearable Hummer. And so the forms are much more sort of planar and geometric and not as integrated as the Iron Man armor, where everything is sleek and smooth. And here there were going to be some real solid steps and gaps and stuff that really make it feel heavily armored.
Awesome. Do we have any audience questions? Okay, we have a couple. There's a mic right back here, so if you guys want to ask, you can just hop on the mic so everybody can hear.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question about working with costume design. Because it seems like a lot of those of you that do more fabric type designs are kind of designing the costumes, but the movies also do have a separate costume designer. So do you work with them initially? Do you often come up with the original design and the costume designer kind of does fabrics, or how does that process work?
I mean, we get to work with some of the best costume designers in the business. Thankfully, they're amazing at taking the images that we come up with and turning them into real stuff that works on the actors. Like anything in the film business, it's a collaboration. We're lucky enough to usually be the first ones doing the drawings, and since it's our responsibility to get the images and designs approved in illustration form first, the collaboration does become them telling us, what feels reasonable. The actors are, we'll want this more than that, and we end up getting to a place in the end where the costumes look great. But in terms of responsibilities, I would just always look at it as a fantastic collaboration, and each of us really couldn't do couldn't reach the level the costumes get to without the other.
Thank you.
All right, well, first of all, thank you all so much for coming today. And I have a two-part question. The first one is just a numerical answer. So for each one of you, if you didn't work for Marvel and have such awesome jobs, how big of a Marvel fan would you be regardless, like from 1 to 100?
1 to what?
1 to 100.
1 to 100, how big of a Marvel fan would you be if you didn't do this for art? I mean, I assume you were probably all big Marvel fans before you started doing this.
Well, you mean assuming that the movies were going on without us? And
Yeah, you're assuming you did something else for a living, yeah.
If you have doppelgangers who were working on these films.
I mean, I'd be in the 90s. I love the characters. I'd be so excited to go to see them.
I'd be over 100 because that after credit scene in Iron Man 1 when Nick Fury came out, I was like this alone in the theater. I knew exactly what that meant, and I was like dumbfounded. I was like, holy crap, they're gonna do this.
I would be 100 too, because when I was younger, I was Marvel. I was always against DC. Sorry, DC guys. Me and my friend went to DC, and we always talk about artists. Who's the better artist? Oh no, that artist worked for Marvel too, and I know he's our guy. And then we're like, so being at Marvel, and now and my friends when I was younger, knowing how much of a Marvel guy I am. Except X-Men. Hopefully we get back here at the MCU. That would be awesome because that's my cat. I love that comic book a lot. So yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
As far as the whole body of Marvel Cinematic Universe movies go, how many years of amazing movies, even if I'm not working here, I'll be a huge fan of what studios put out. So this got to be year 100.
I sense a pattern here.
Just 20.
You're fired.
I mean, ever since I love comic books, but like when Iron Man first came out, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I was like, and then like, you know, being able to work, and I was like, wow, it's so crazy. But I mean, like these movies are so good in and of itself. We're like, oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Like we talked about it after we watched it. We're like, can't believe it. You know, it's such a good movie. Like all these movies that have come out from Marvel Studios, it's just like, I don't know, they're kicking ass, right? Right?
I'd say 90 because it'd be a 10% envy tax.
Okay. So it was hard for me to imagine that you guys weren't already big Marvel fans. I was just confirming that. My actual real question was, being such big fans, how difficult is it for you to know so much about the movies? Like I normally watch the first 2 trailers and then I'm on media blackout. I don't want to see anything else. I don't know how much of the script you guys know in advance, if it's the whole thing or if they just give you bits and pieces, but as a huge fan of the movies, that would be, I mean, your jobs would be amazing to do what you guys do for a living, but that would be kind of difficult to know like a lot of what's going to happen. So let's talk about how difficult that part of the job is.
I think that's the only downside for me. It's like I'm never gonna experience it the way you guys do. So even when we watch it at the premiere, it's like I know what's gonna happen. So that's the only bad thing, but I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I'd say the same, except that, you know, because I've been there for so long, I actually have a different sort of relationship with the characters. I can feel, like it's almost like when I see Captain America go through something, and because I've been with him, at least in the cinematic universe, since the beginning, like, it's almost like I feel it more, which is really weird to say, and I sound like a weirdo, but like, there's a, going on that journey and having been a part of, like, helping tell that story, tell his story, almost makes it more poignant for me to go watch the films, because I start crying at stupid moments where, but yeah, it's, I guess I would say, I agree with Andy, except that I feel like in a different way, my involvement and my ability to see the stuff on screen has actually enriched my experience of seeing it.
I think with Ryan, he's really, really into, let's say, Captain America and his relationship with the President Marvel and stuff. He's able to kind of guide them sometimes with which way this character could do. Oh, that guy doesn't seem like he should be going that way, because he knows the character so well. Because I have to say that, right? Because some of the ideas he'd come up with and pitch it, like they would change some of the script. Let's say, for example, So example of the Ant-Man scene with, I designed some of the Ant-Mans and the ants, I'm sorry. And there's a keyframe I did with feeding the sugar water, which was not in the script. And with these guys showing this stuff and pitching it and having them excited about it, they changed the script based on the ideas we produce. And Ryan would come with a lot of iconic ideas that I don't remember all of it, but a lot of them would be in the film. And Andy, pretty much all of us had that chance to do that, and that's really exciting.
All right, I think we have time for one last really quick question. We have to wrap at 11:20.
Hey guys, first of all, Andy Park, big fan. This is more of a question of like a portfolio type-wise, as an aspiring entertainment designer or illustrator. What are some ways you guys approach your portfolios before showing them to big media such as Marvel, or as for you, Andy Park, for like before you started Tomb Raider or Lara Croft? Like, do you guys more usually when you guys present your portfolios, do you guys think about showing more traditional work or like digital?
Well, for concept art, it's pretty much all digital. The standard is pretty much Photoshop, digital paintings, and then these days like a lot of 3D, ZBrush. You don't have to have one or the other. Oh, you need to have one or the other, but you don't necessarily have to have both. But when I try to get into concept art, I had to make a new portfolio. I couldn't show my Tomb Raider work to try to get a job at Marvel. They'd be like, cool comic book, kid. And then, and then I wouldn't get a job. So I had to show that I know how to paint, I know how to paint realistically, and I need to show that I know how to design, do likenesses, things like that. So that is, what you see in the art books over here is kind of like the kind of portfolio that you need to build in order to get like film work, at least the ones that are live action.
One thing that's also really important is to have a sketchbook, because it's great to see a lot of very polished, finished artwork, particularly digital artwork, but that doesn't necessarily tell you about how someone thinks and about how someone approaches design. Sometimes it's possible to get to a beautiful, polished finish without having the thought process to back it up. So being able to see a sketchbook, being able to see the iterations that people go through and the way that they approach thinking about design in an arena where you don't necessarily have all the crutches of digital tools is really important to show.
Thank you guys.
I think we have one last question from Princess Anna in the back.
I have a question for everyone. What's your favorite suit?
The Iron Man suits?
That you decide.
Or
Iron
any
Man
suit?
suits.
Any costume.
Okay, favorite costume. Let's go down the line.
I'm a fan of the Mark I. It's the first suit I got to design, so I'm a fan
And then Yellow Jacket.
Is it Mark 42, the gold and red one from Iron Man 3?
I just like all the Iron Mans.
They all kick ass.
My favorite's the Mark 45 from Civil War. Or no, not from Civil War, sorry, from Age of Ultron.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming out today. Both Ryan and Andy are an Artist Alley, so if you guys want to talk to them, Ryan isn't, but Andy's in Artist Alley.
I'm 1226.
Okay, Ryan's in 1226, and Andy is
B40.
B40, and you guys can check out their art, you can ask them more questions. Let's give everybody a round of applause. Thank you.